It's the Infinite Podcast. Go tell your friends. It's the Infinite Podcast. My God, it never ends. It's the Infinite Podcast with Rob and Cork the Kid.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite Podcast, the podcast covering the infinite and ever-expanding multiverse of fandom. From movies, comics, TV shows, video games, we got you covered. I'm Rob. I'm here, as always, with Court. How's it going, man?
It's going great. I just got back from a globe-trotting adventure with Dials of Destinies and Crystal Skulls and the Doom from Temple of Doom. It's been awesome.
Yeah, so we're going to review the Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny, the latest and probably final installment in the Indiana Jones saga. This was one of the most anticipated movies of the summer. And we'll talk about it because there's the movie itself, obviously, we're going to talk about, but also like the implications of the movie, which I think may be even more important because between this and The Flash, there is an alarming trend right now of box office performances, and this one, I mean, even more so than The Flash.
Right.
So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about, my question with The Flash was, biggest question I had was, who was this movie for? And I think I have a similar question for this movie also, even though I think I like this movie a little bit more than The Flash.
I do.
But I still have the same question of, like, who was this for at the end of the day?
It's a valid argument.
Yeah, and I think the box office kind of reflects that. But yeah, we'll talk about that and so much more as it relates to Indiana Jones. But first, we only have really a couple bits of news. First and foremost, we got another Dune trailer.
Yes. Lord.
Man.
Just operating on this level, and it's funny that we're only talking about Dune and Indiana Jones today. It's budgetary is one of my questions, but my big theme of today, my big argument that I'm going to pose is an argument of, product versus art. This is really what I want to dive into today, and, let's just dive into this Dune trailer, because this seems like just straight art just being presented on the grandest scale possible. I mean, one thing that you talk about all the times is budgets of these movies when we talk about, like, box office return, how much, return on investment.
Oh, we'll talk about it when we talk about Indiana Jones.
But you see something like this, and you just see how much, of a grand scale, but just how intimate also that it feels. It just, not only, visually, but narratively, it feels just it feels thoughtful. It feels respectful to the source material. This movie looks absolutely phenomenal. I mean, this looks to be, in my opinion, as of right now, this looks to be the best movie of the year. Off of just previews alone, this looks to be the best movie that could possibly come out this year. Yeah,
I mean, just the trailer in general just looks like the bar has been raised from the first one, which I think was an important mark for this, at least the trailers for the second one to hit, because, I mean, obviously the first movie was critically just lauded and everything like that, and then, like, some of the criticisms of it were that it was obviously a little bit slower paced, and that, it felt obviously incomplete because it's a part one, so I feel like a lot of people were looking for this part two to see, like, okay, are we gonna kind of shift into the next gear? And I think this trailer answers all those questions.
My gosh, yeah.
Everything seems, bigger, grander, more kind of accelerated compared to the first one. Like, we're kind of like getting into the thick of it now,
right?
Which is a really exciting prospect. I don't think this movie is going to disappoint in the slightest.
It's something that Denis talked about, that if the first one was, an introduction into this world, something to get people acclimated, like we talked about when we reviewed the first one, this second movie is a straight war movie. Like, this is a straight, emotional, grandiose war film, which I think it's going to play well at the time it's coming out. And something is an important conversation that we're going to talk about is the time of these releases for these movies as well. This movie has a lot of space to breathe in November as well, so this movie comes out November 3rd. I think they're going to try to get it in whatever film festivals in September. I think they're going to try to get it there as well. And, funny, we're talking about Indiana Jones. Something that was shown at Cannes was Indiana Jones. This movie feels like the one, if I needed to show one of these bigger, these larger grand movies, I would have to, of anything this year, would have been this one is the one I would have showed with all out confidence.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the we talked about this concept also when we talked about Avatar, right? Like the first one being kind of like the world buildy kind of lore movie that's, obviously built up by the visual effects. Dune's not so different from that, to be honest with you. It's built upon, stunning visuals and kind of building a world. And then when we talked about Avatar Way of the Water, it was way more character driven. And I think the second Dune movie is also going to be more character driven. Not that the first one wasn't. The first one was incredibly character driven, especially as it relates to Paul and his mom. But this one is really going to dive into a bunch of other characters.
Right.
So I think you're looking at bigger, more action. Obviously, you're looking at more character development and pretty much the same level, if not improved visual quality, which is a recipe for, I think, something that's going to be really special
on a
$122
million budget. $122 million to produce this is just, it feels unreal. Same thing for the Batman. I was questioning, I was like, how does this movie not cost at least 250? I know it's 2003, and obviously the budget, if you were to, equate it now, would be different, but Return of the King only cost $94 million, and you're paying all these A-list actors on top of that, these action set pieces in that movie. Same thing with this. This movie, to me, is what I felt watching Return of the King. Obviously, it's only a trailer, but I'm just getting a similar energy, like that this second part is the one where it's, thunderous applause in the like this is the one that's really gonna bring everybody together for just an absolutely astonishing theater experience.
Yeah, that's really the best way to put it. I mean, there's so much going on in this trailer that just kind of are just these touchstones of excitement, really. Like you're gonna get your big war sequence.
Yeah, and I mean I said it, and when we talked about the first trailer, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but the action set piece third act from Return of the King, which had actually two third act pieces. The war of the Battle of Arrakeen might be one of the biggest, the biggest war sequences in a movie put to film. So, one thing Greg Fraser as a cinematographer understands is scale. He knows how to shoot it for Denis, and they're working in harmony right now. And that score is just absolutely phenomenal at this point too.
Yeah, and you're also getting, what I think maybe the first movie was not lacking, but it just wasn't focused on, was you're going to get a true villain in this,
and a perfect antithesis to Paul as
exactly.
well. Exactly,
that's more of what I'm getting, because obviously the Emperor of the Sardaukar is the villain in the first one, but this one you're going to get Fade, who's like a true adversary to Paul, when in ways that the Emperor wasn't.
Right.
So
because he can't match him physically. It's like it's like having Lex Luthor versus Doomsday. Like Doomsday can physically mess with him, but the Emperor is there to be something that I think is going to be expertly played by Christopher Walken is something that the Baron says in the first movie. Like the Emperor, he's a jealous man, but he's a dangerous jealous man. Like he might not be physically able to do stuff, but he can sure bring any force to bear that he may need.
Yeah, so just all in all, can't wait for November. Like, it's one of those trailers that makes you want time to pass.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the only other thing is just some minor things. So we have Benedict Cumberbatch, who said he's going to be filming as Doctor Strange next year for something.
Yeah. They could have hyper accelerated the Doctor Strange 3 is what I'm thinking. Or he's shooting stuff for Kang Dynasty, possibly. But this project is coming out in 2025, right? Because he said he's shooting it next year for a project that'll come out. So I'm thinking, because remember what they said? They said they're moving up Doctor Strange 3. It's not in the timeline yet, but I think that's what he's shooting for. I think they needed to get something out for him before, because whatever he was doing in Doctor Strange 2, obviously the incursions, all the multiversal stuff is going to have to do with Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. If Kang Dynasty is still a movie that we're making. So.
Yeah, that's still a question mark every day. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, it's also why I like when we talk about movies like Indiana Jones, because I do enjoy the future implications and the theorizing, but sometimes it's just nice to talk about a movie and not worry about any of that stuff.
Because it can become quite daunting at times.
Yeah. So, that's why I kind of like when we talk about movies like Indiana Jones, because it's like a one and done, and then we just talk about the movie and then we move on, which is exactly what we're going to do now. So Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny releases again. We talked about last week, just a crazy summer
Mm-hmm.
of movies, just these week after week kind of excursions into the cinema, and it definitely feels like it's starting to take a toll on everything that's out, really, with a few exceptions, because this movie is not doing well at the box office, off a budget of $295 million.
Insanity.
Man, that's a big chunk of change.
Yeah, and I mean, we could just launch into it right now and just feel that movie didn't. I don't know how to judge these things, and the one that really got me, woken up to this was Ant-Man 3 is the one where I was just like, where is the budget of this going to? Because it doesn't feel like it's going to the actual movie. Because I've seen movies be made for, I'm talking 150 to 200 million less that look infinitely better than your movie. And that goes back to my argument that I'm gonna keep hammering home is, am I getting a product or am I getting something that, some artists worked on? And it just feels like these bigger budget movies are starting to feel just like products that we keep getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the $295 million budget, it's made $83 million domestically, $70 million internationally, so a current worldwide return of $154 million, which is awful.
Yeah.
There's really no other way to go about it. Just from our personal, viewing experience, we went on a Wednesday night. It was late. It was a late showing.
It was the last show, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a late showing. It was a Wednesday night, but also it was just us and then two other people.
Yep.
In the big theater.
Yeah.
So
and we, just to give it a reference point, we saw Spider-Man again the week sometime in that next week. And it was the same thing. We went to the latest show, I think, or whatever it was, and there were still people in there. Even for Transformers, I went the week after, so after the release weekend, and I went on I went to the first show on a Tuesday, and there were still people in there. It wasn't, anything minded, but there was maybe 15 people in there. Like you said, there was only two other people and us in there. So, and I think this is a good time to talk about your point. Who's this movie for?
Yeah, I kind of struggle to answer that question because, I guess the best comparison to make to this movie is in terms of who I think they tried to make it for was Top Gun Maverick is probably the best example of that. You're making it for people who have a fondness for this character and this franchise and this actor in Harrison Ford. I feel like that's what they wanted to do, but it doesn't quite get there because the story in itself, we talk about this concept all the time of there being the bones of a good movie inside of a thing that we've seen. Yeah. I think this movie definitely falls into that category because I think there is an interesting idea of Indiana Jones kind of not being able to reconcile his past and how it's how it's affecting his present. I think that's a perfect premise. I think that's really good. I just don't think this movie leans into it enough.
No.
And it doesn't lean into it enough, and we'll talk about it in spoilers. It doesn't lean into it so much that the ending kind of jarred me a little bit.
Sure. And you know what doesn't help? Who's the other main character of this movie? I think that's the other thing that Phoebe Waller-Bridges' character doesn't help do because, no spoilers yet, but she's not a character that I resonate with to a lot of frequency. She's not somebody that you could really connect to because they take too much time trying to build out, they don't do enough in her past to get me to justify where she is right there. Because, there's the scoundrel mentality that Han Solo has, but he still has endearing qualities. I don't get those endearing qualities from her until 5 minutes left in this movie.
Yeah, they try to make her kind of this younger Indiana Jones type character.
But what did he have? So in the last 4 days, I've watched all 4 Indiana Jones movies plus this. So I've seen every Indiana Jones movie in the last 4 days. And one thing you get, it's a great juxtaposition from the first movie. So how does Raiders start out? And then immediately goes back to the classroom. So, he has that everyman quality to him. He's very, understandable, recognizable. He's not some rich playboy, he's a college professor he's just a teacher. He's a teacher that's not rich. He is kind of chasing a little bit of glory, but he still has the mentality it belongs in a museum. The famous line, belongs in a museum. Like, he's doing it because, that's his job. So there is something that's like, recognizable for Indy, that she just doesn't have in this movie. And I think it hurts the main theme a lot.
Yeah. And, that it's a fine line to walk when you have a cast that's relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of major players in this. So if two out of the three main players in this aren't working, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Harrison Ford is great in this movie. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is great.
Oh yeah, I think her acting is great. I think she's having a lot of fun. I just don't think she's written particularly well.
Yeah, and I also don't think that the villain is written particularly well.
However, I did quite like Mads Mikkelsen, and you said it's Mads Mikkelsen. It's going to be tough not to like him.
Yeah, this was like a layup for him.
I actually liked him better than I liked Cate Blanchett in Crystal Skull. I think it's the same archetype of a character down to the point of, like, it's 57 and this one takes place in 69, and they're both worked for Hitler for a little bit. He just has a little bit more, of a, besides the fact that he's a Nazi, he has a little bit more of, that understanding of what your main villain's main point is for him.
Yeah, I think, obviously, again, we'll talk about it in spoilers, but I think his kind of motivation is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting.
But they don't really
lean into it.
They don't lean into it or really reveal it until like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
I think the movie that leans into the best of the mythology and how to get it back to the to the main villains of the movie, I think it's Last Crusade understands that wonderfully. I think it gets it.
Well, this movie takes a swing.
Mm-hmm. It takes and I didn't think there was any possible bigger swing than Crystal Skull. And even, to be honest, Temple of Doom also had a pretty big swing to do. Temple of Doom, notoriously feels it's funny, like, obviously Crystal Skull is 2008. This movie should have been this or Crystal Skull. But we have both of these movies too, and they just feel so much displaced. But Temple of Doom, in universe thematically feels the most different. Like, it feels just like a very different experience, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, talking lore, it's very, very interesting. I'm actually kind of into this one.
Yeah, it takes a monster swing that I wasn't sure that they were going to go full. Yep. I didn't sure that they were going to go fully into it.
I thought it was going to be kind of like a bait and switch situation where they went to the subtlety route, and it was kind of like a metaphor instead of like the
actual thing that happens.
They actually did it.
Yeah. But I mean, all in all, I think the movie looks quite good. I just don't think it's $295 million good.
Yeah, I'm probably less on that than you. I don't think this movie looks specifically special. No. I think it looks decent, and I think it looks decent because James Mangold's there. But again, it's my theory that goes along because I think about this with the Eternals for some points. It's like you're getting these bigger, these Oscar nominated and Oscar winning directors, and it just feels like Disney's nerfing them a bit to make sure they fit a certain mold for what you're going for. Because what did I talk about when we were walking out? I kept talking about Logan. I'm like, why did Logan feel so much different? But isn't it a similar kind of concept? Like, it's, you have your older character that's done and retired and gone, and then you have, your newer either daughter or surrogate daughter character come in. And they're both capable. They're both like the older version of them, but, they have their differences. But, Logan just felt a little bit more raw. I think I could have used that out of this movie a little bit too. I think my big thing is I think Spielberg should have directed this movie himself. Obviously he was working on The Fabelmans while this movie was being made too. And The Fabelmans obviously is about his own life, but I just think that you lose a little bit of an endearing quality that even Crystal Skull had just by having him behind the camera.
Yeah, and, another thing about this movie is that it's long, for one. Yeah,
and all the other four movies had a sweet 2 hours. 2 hours consistently. How long was this one? Like
2.5.
2.5? You could have cut
almost 2.5.
Yeah, you could have cut some
more
some
than
stuff.
2.5.
Yeah.
It's 154 minutes, so it's a little over 2.5.
Yeah.
And the runtime isn't justified by the action sequences, because the action sequences, I said this to you, were all pretty samey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're all pretty much the same setup. Like, they steal a thing, and then they do a chase, and then there's a fist fight.
Yeah, it's funny how, it feels like there almost have to be, into the written contract, like, you need to somehow be, this big CGI act fest when that's not what the first three movies. Obviously, once you hit Temple and then once you hit Last Crusade, there was definitely CGI, but there was something about the practicality of each situation. Shot planning on days is something that Spielberg was notorious for, that you just kind of feel lost. And again, it's going to my point of, like, this feels like a studio movie at a lot of turns, which is just super unfortunate for where, Raiders and Temple of Doom and Last Crusade were, and even bits of Crystal Skull.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, I saw the scene when we left. That movie was okay.
Yeah, there's a decent amount of good stuff about this movie too. Like you said, Harrison Ford is great. I like the lore of this one particularly. I think it's actually pretty interesting. It also, that ending as well too, thematically, I think is pretty strong, and I think it's
the ending a lot.
It's very endearing as well to Indy. It's a love letter essentially to him, and it's something that doesn't happen a lot. It's like an allegorical, type of theme too, because it's like, it's not only the plot, but it's Indy himself. Like, it's like, before we dive into spoilers, like, it's everything he's kind of worked for, and not only that he worked for, that he evolved to, because he isn't the same character that he was in Raiders to Temple to Last Crusade to Crystal Skull to this. So
right.
I think it shows a really good evolution of his character too, but it also doesn't portray anything that came before him. So
I think, like, just surrounding the character of Indiana Jones, this movie is quite good.
Yeah,
it's just, the actual movie itself, like the actual mechanics of the movie, I don't think are particularly strong.
Yeah.
And then I just don't think the other characters kind of rise to the occasion.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I made my point in this. It pertained to comic book movies when I was talking about it, but now it feels just general, like the idea of, like, the film, and cats off to Tom Cruise, and I'll say it again, he's kind of been one of the only ones that's like, it needs to be quality filmmaking. It can't just be like, this is a Disney product, we're going to market it as a Disney product and it's going to sell. You can't get away with that anymore. Or it can't just be a Warner Brothers product that's just going to sell. Like, the filmmaking itself needs to now, because people are more aware of it. I feel like the idea of movie magic, the veil is kind of being, like, lifted a little bit, because everybody kind of knows practicality, like, that whole type of movie magic, like, everybody grew up out of that now, so we kind of have access to know how everybody does everything. So now it needs to just be at a high level. I mean, John Wick is a good example of it too. Like, your filmmaking was so strong where your narrative didn't need to be overly complicated. Same thing with Top Gun Maverick. Same thing with the Mission Impossible from the early reviews. So something like this, like, not to use the word inexcusable, just it doesn't feel like, again, why does this movie need to be $300 million? And if it is, then why does it look like this if it's $300 million?
Yeah, and not to get all, like, anti-big corporation, but between this being owned by Disney and The Flash being owned by Warner Brothers, like I said this to you last night when we saw it, like, at times this movie felt like Disney just threw, like, Indiana Jones into an AI generator and popped out a script.
Yep, they gave us a product, and they were like, and it was something that I was tricked by once this movie got announced. It was the idea that James Mangold was going to take this. I was like, good idea.
Yeah.
Give it to James Mangold. He's already done a story like this too. And I think that he's a really phenomenal filmmaker, so I think that was going to work. You're getting John Williams back, but it's not just about the director. You stick to it. It's about all the personnel you have on it. And it's about the studio that you're working for now too. So it just feels like, Disney's kind of they're in a tough spot. They're not going to be anywhere near where Warner Brothers is right now, but they are in a difficult kind of realm right now, because
every avenue.
Yeah.
Like, when you talk about their Star Wars stuff, when you talk about their Marvel stuff, and now this.
Yeah. The only outlier was Guardians of the Galaxy from this year. And why is Guardians of the Galaxy so incredible? Because they just gave it to James Gunn. They said, James said, practicality we're going to use. Our narratives are going to be very strong, very heartfelt, very thought out. And that's what wins you ball games, for lack of a better term, right now.
Yeah. So all in all, like I said, this movie's fine. It's not awful.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hate it. It's pretty good. Like I said, I just think it's a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, the performances are good. Across the board. The character design much less so. Besides that of Indiana Jones,
Right.
and I do think that Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character has some late game character development that I could have used probably like an hour sooner.
Yep.
Exactly. And then that probably would have made the back end of the movie that much stronger. And then Mads Mikkelsen just doing doing Mads Mikkelsen things.
I think it's just a great in terms of like inserts. He is a great insert into a franchise like this because he's familiar with. He's one of the most iconic actors of playing villains in Hollywood history at this point in his career too. So he's a great insert. I think he plays well off of Harrison and everybody else too. I like his henchman from The Sandman and from Logan was in there, which I thought my favorite part about that guy is he's all about that action. That man he's on 100 every single role he steps into, which is great.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but he's great. The goons did feel very
the Boyd Holbrook, yeah.
Oh yeah. The goons did feel very original trilogy Indiana Jones too, which I appreciated.
Especially the big guy.
The big guy. Yep. Every indie movie needs the big guy where you can't just punch him straight up.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh man. So let's launch into spoiler. This is gonna be just out of order. Just this part, but launch it when the two guys pulled up with the swords, I wish he would have shot both of them. It would have been the perfect callback to Raiders, but
yeah, I mean jumping into spoilers, I mean time travel.
Yeah, time travel. we're doing the time travel. And we're actually doing the time travel. Like I said, I didn't think there was going to be a bigger swing than interdimensional aliens, but sure, let's just do actual time travel. So this revolves around the real world Archimedes dial from Syracuse, Sicily, not Syracuse, New York. And yes, this dial.
That's the MacGuffin.
That's the MacGuffin. We're gonna rank the MacGuffins at the end of this, but yeah, it's the Archimedes dial. What's the thing? It's like instead of it being straight up time travel, it'll get you to a point on Earth where you can go through a portal to a certain period, a preset period of time. So instead of where did they go to? They were like, we need to go to basically the plan that Mads Mikkelsen has is I'm going to go back in time. I thought this was the most interesting point for a villain. This was so interesting.
Yeah, me too. I really like this.
So, and he's just like, what are you going to do? You're going to kill Churchill? You're going to kill Eisenhower? He's like, no, I'm going to kill Hitler and we're going to do this right. And I was like...
Because it's a callback to kind of a throwaway line in the beginning of the movie where Mads Mikkelsen's character says Hitler lost the war.
Yeah. He's just like, and then again at the end of at the beginning of the second act in the movie, same thing. Once it goes into the big, landing parade, like the moon parade that happens, he asks the waiter that comes and delivers the room service, like, Hitler lost the war. Like, if it wasn't for Hitler, we would have won the war. And the guy's just like, all right, man, this is 1969 though, so I'm just gonna get out of here because this is getting weird. But I forget which, or Werner von Braun is who Mads Mikkelsen's character is based off of, used from Project Paperclip. So German scientists absorbed by the American government helped them, win the space race. So to them, he's like royalty. So they're like, we're going to give you whatever you want. You can globetrot across the world if you want, kind of unchecked. We have that. I actually quite liked the CIA agent. I forget what her name was. I actually quite liked her character.
I was waiting for her to do something else, and then she just dies.
Was killed, yeah. Antonio Banderas, waiting for, and Antonio Banderas in this movie did not need to be some, insanely complex character or anything. Same concept, he's just there and gets killed, which in any other circumstance, I probably would have been like, good, you're showing how formidable the opponent is, but in this one, it just felt like these characters were just there to be wasted, essentially.
And it's also the Antonio Banderas' character dying leads to like one of the more confusing moments of the movie.
And
for
it's
me.
This is immediately it's like my biggest issue with I'm just gonna call her Wombat.
Yeah, Helena Shaw.
Yeah, Helena Shaw. So Toby Jones is in this movie. Toby Jones plays, Indy's companion for the beginning part of this movie. And it's 1944. It's near the end of World War II.
Well, it's funny you mentioned a CGI act fest because that's what the first half hour of this movie is. It's entirely de-aged Harrison Ford doing an old Indiana Jones adventure.
Yeah. Yep. So they're not even after the Dial of Destiny. They're after the
spear.
The spear that was used to cut Christ.
Yeah, it's a thing that's used as a MacGuffin across a multitude of media. It's the spear of destiny, basically.
Right. So they find out it's a fake, and the head general guy is just like, all right, well, now we're going to get killed when we go back to Hitler because he's going to be mad. And then Mads Mikkelsen's character is just like, it's fine, because just get me the dial and, you know, he's going to be happy. And then he realizes he's just like, the Fuhrer, he's not going to care about some dial. Mads Mikkelsen, I think that's when he has his heel turn. He's like, he's actually an idiot that doesn't know anything. Like, I can make sure we go back and actually win this war. So yeah, he runs into Indy, in classic romps, gets kicked off the train, they get saved. Good job. 1969.
Yeah. What do you think of the extended de-age sequence?
I thought it was just going to be the shots from the trailer, and it was just going to be a reference point to use in, you know, once we get to 69. It didn't look great after, like, the first one, as soon as, like, you know, the trailer bit, like, where the hood comes off, I'm like, that actually looks pretty solid.
Really good. I was
and
like,
then
whoa.
he started moving, I said, uh-oh, this isn't as good as it was before.
I mean, obviously he has old man Harrison Ford voice.
Which is also puzzling, which I don't know why they couldn't have remixed his, like they do with Mark Hamill. They did it really well with Mark Hamill in the season 2 of The Mandalorian. It's like, or in Book of Boba Fett. My bad.
Yeah, oh no,
Jeez.
you did it.
I did do it. But yeah, whatever they did with Mark Hamill in season 1 of Book of Boba Fett.
Also, what they did with Vader in the Obi-Wan series. Also,
and then I mean the biggest ones that we talked about walking out of the theater was Samuel L. Jackson and Captain Marvel and Michael Douglas in Ant-Man 1 and 2. Like, those look, you know, as if I'm watching a movie from the 80s for both of them, versus this just feels like, you know, just a CGI person running around. But like you said, old man's like, and again,
I could tell like he went for it.
Oh yeah, that's
like,
something
he did go for, like, he did try to sound like young Indiana Jones, which is, you know, credit to him, like, for giving that a whirl, but you could still tell.
You know what he's missing out of his... It's the subtlety. There was something that was very... Like, there was, like, a calming tone a little bit in his voice.
Well, he's missing the 80s Harrison Ford, like, that suave kind of scoundrel-sounding voice that he had in the 80s with Han Solo and, you know, Indiana Jones. Like, he had that kind of, like, youthful exuberance, obviously, that he doesn't have anymore, being an 80-year-old man. So, but I mean, he went for it. He did try to sound like, and at times I think he did hit it.
Yeah,
like,
I think he did.
There were times where he did sound like young Indiana Jones. So
it's just unfortunate that this, like, and again, I spoiled myself because I watched the other 4, and, like, you know, even not counting Crystal Skulls, so let's just talk about 1 through 3, like, just the sequences, and I mean, we had a train sequence in the beginning of Last Crusade. That was, you know, 95% practical, and then we have a train sequence here that's, you know, 95% CGI.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest kind of complaints about this movie is I feel like every other Indiana Jones movie has kind of like an iconic kind of action sequence, like the boulder. You said the train and this one doesn't really have one.
No. Like, I mean, I think the one that they were trying to go for was the Morocco sequence, which I'll spoil it now. I think that is the best action set piece of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. It just, you know, is it going to hold up against the other Indiana Jones action sequences?
It's the insert shots of people feels very, again, AI jet, like, make sure you just get a reaction shot and just, like, bad CGI background behind them moving. Like, it's just, it just makes me wish that, like, you know, the people working on, like, John Wick or, like, you know, what Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise and team are doing in the Mission Impossible, like, those people why are these people not being gotten by, like, your Warner Brothers or your Disney's? Like, those are the people that you want working on your movies.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, we get this extended half-hour CGI pre-Indiana Jones sequence, and then we morph to the present day, which is the 1960s, and Indiana Jones, he's Grumpy Gramps, Harrison Ford.
So we found out a couple things. Marion left him because Shia LaBeouf's Mutt Williams was killed in the Vietnam War.
Good.
Come on, man. Which does lead into the best and most emotional scene in this movie later, about an hour and a half later in this movie, but Mutt's dead. Marion's gone, so he's by himself. He moved to New York, obviously, because the end of Last Crusade. Obviously, he's fired. He's in New York. Where did he go to? Where did he go? I forget what school he went to. It's a real school, but he's retiring. It's it for him. So he's done. We landed on the moon, and one thing I really like is, like, that all that magic's gone from his classroom, and you can feel like nobody's interested. Everybody cares about the moon day. It's moon day today. Nobody cares.
Parade.
There's parade. It's a parade inside my city. Nobody cares. So yeah, he's doing his thing. He's teaching, and there's just some woman up top that's just actually answering all of his questions. Boom! It's
Helena Shaw.
It's Helena Shaw.
Yep.
She's his goddaughter. Don't know when that happened. So I get this is another point. Obviously, these movies need, when franchises run this long, they need insert exposition. How do you feel about? Because I feel like he's known so many people that like even Salah's in this movie too. Like, how is none of his kids Indy's godfather, but like, she magically is like
like I said, this whole plot revolving her and him was very confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very contrived.
Yeah,
like
it feels artificial. Like
I do understand that she feels like. Also, honestly, just like personally speaking, I don't know that many people that are like that attached to like their godparents.
Right.
To where like you abandoned me like when my father died.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were supposed to be the one that kind of took up the mantle of my dad.
But did they even dive into that in this movie that
Not
much?
really.
No, that wasn't her problem actually. So that is a problem in of itself. So
And then like I mean this first sequence with them is one of the handful of times she like double crosses him
Mm-hmm.
and like dicks him over.
right. So this is where we find out that she is actually she's kind of a thief. She's like a con artist essentially. So she is smart though. Her father did teach her everything that he knows. So she's still a genius. She is an archaeologist just like her father and just like Indy. However, she's in it for the money. That's her whole character. How long is this movie?
2.5 hours.
This for 2 hours and 20 minutes. That's her whole character. She's in it for the money.
And she makes sure that she lets us know.
Just not good writing. She just
not.
says it like, I'm only in this for like, okay, we understand that. Like,
And then like her like sidekick kid also says like, I thought we were only doing this for the money.
yeah,
Like he says that like a couple times.
and that kid's just short round.
Yeah.
And I told you walking out of the theater, if Everything Everywhere All at Once would have came out before, like if it would have hit the popularity before this movie started, got like the script written, then Ke Huy Quan 100% would have been like without question would have been in this movie.
And then kind of what we were talking about when we talk about like this movie not having a lot of memorable sequences is the rest of this movie up until like the time travel bit. It's just like the dial changing hands and then them chasing each other around.
Yeah.
Like that's basically what the next hour and a half of this movie is.
There is something that's so novel about the iconic, go over the map and we're traveling to like the globetrotting.
Yeah.
The globetrotting feels very not forced, but it just feels very there.
You know what it feels like? It feels like fast traveling in a video game.
Yeah. Like we need to get to this next point. But a video game that I don't have too much investment in.
Yeah, you're just like, all right, now I'm here.
Yep.
Now I'm in this place.
Right.
And we're doing a thing and we're doing it. That's what I mean about the action sequences. They're not diverse enough that I'm interested.
Right.
Like the horse in the subway bit is interesting.
But it doesn't look great.
No. The Morocco bit, like you said, is very good.
Yeah, that's the best one.
And then there's the dive sequence in the boat. And then there's the extended...
Which was way shorter than I thought it was going to be, too.
And then there's the Cave of Dionysus chase slash...
The ending.
The ending.
Yeah.
And then there's the time travel-y bit.
Right. Right.
So, like, the time travel-y bit and the Moroccan sequence are probably the two most interesting. And then everything else is just kind of like we're getting from one plot point to another.
Right.
And along the way, like, nothing else is really happening.
Yeah. And it's like, there's a lot of, arguments and there's a lot of, friction between Indy and her.
But they have that same argument, like...
The entire
whole
movie. And it's
like,
just... But it doesn't feel like... I'm not interested in that. Like, because you're not interesting enough of a character and I don't care about you enough to not take, Indy's side in this. Like,
which brings us back full circle to the Antonio Banderas moment when, Mads Mikkelsen has the dead to rights. He's got the cipher. He's got the whole thing. And he's like, read this Indiana Jones. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna, because you're a Nazi, first of all.
Yeah.
So he shoots and kills.
That's probably one of the best parts of this movie. Is just his disdain for Nazis, and he's just like, you're a freaking Nazi, so you're... So
Mads Mikkelsen, he shoots and kills Antonio Banderas, and it's like, dang, like he just killed Indiana Jones's friend, and then Helena she does her con artist shtick,
Yep.
and she tips off that she's working with Indy, like she wants him to help her. But then they get to the boat to escape, and you'd think like, okay, this is resolved, like they're gonna work together now, like they're on the up and up, and then she just kind of like makes these like crude kind of remarks, and then even Indy says like, one of my good friends was just killed. And I'm just like...
And she's just like, sorry.
Yeah, like,
and then the movie just keeps going.
It was such a tonally strange moment that I'm just like...
Yeah, it bugged me. That one really bugged. And it's just like, you think you would show a little bit more respect to Antonio Banderas as an actor as well, too, and it just feels like he was just thrown in here to be killed.
Like, and I thought, like, maybe she... Like, a perfect moment, like, coming off of that, like, if they were on the boat, like, she should have initiated the conversation, like... Because that would have shown, like, character growth and development if she would have been like, I'm sorry... about your friend, like I didn't realize how dangerous this all was.
I'm sorry about your friend, but like, hey, now we have the dial, we can go get. And that should have been the moment where he's just like, it's not about the money. Like these people that I've learned, like Sala, Marcus, Antonio Banderas' character, like all these people that
Antonio
I've met,
Banderas.
I can't remember his character, but all these people that I've met, like none of us were ever in this for the money. Like we were all in this because we're trying to preserve something, and In Indy's defense, that's why I actually think the ending in this movie is pretty solid. But in her defense, that's why it hurts her character even more, which I don't know which one takes precedence. Like, I don't know if it outrules the ending being good for him, or if it's underwhelming because of her.
Yeah, that's a totally fair point. Like I said, that there's so many ways that moment on the boat could have been better and could have been really helpful to her character. And
like, in screenwriting and movie structuring, like, that is the emotional crux right there before you go into the third act. It's like when your characters are at their lowest before they go into the third act and hit the triumph.
And for her, like, she's never, aside from obviously her father dying, which we don't know how he died.
Even their relationship, I don't buy it for 1 second. Like, I don't buy the two of them together, like, as a father and daughter.
But, like, that would have been a good moment for her to realize, like, this, like, really what's at stake here.
And it's such a simple theme for her. It's like, it's not about the money. Like, it's so, and it's something Indy had to learn too, because from Raiders for Indy, it was very much like, hey, I'm going to get this, and then look, I'm going to be, it's like, and then, he kind of understands, like, there's bigger powers at play in this stuff. So, it's not all about that. It's like, it's so simple. Like, and she's got a kid with her. It's like, I got to teach this kid something, and it's like, for me too, like, it maybe might not be about the money. Like, why did I go to school for all these years? It's like, to preserve. That's why we go to do this.
Yeah, so, like I said, that moment on the boat really bugged me. And then they get to the Cave of Dionysus, they go to Archimedes' tomb, and this felt very classic Indiana Jones. Yep. The whole third act felt pretty classic, like, classic Indiana Jones. And
like, knocking out Nazis, globetrotting, like, tomb raiding, like, all that stuff.
Yeah, so I did enjoy that.
I did like the bit where they were singing in the Cave of Dionysus to get the echo to find out where they needed to go.
Yeah, and they find Archimedes' tomb. They find out that Archimedes actually may have time traveled.
Yep, they were like the carvings on the tomb where he's like, wait a minute, that's a plane in the carvings from 1,000 years ago.
Indy says it's a phoenix, like there's nothing special about it. It's a sim, and she's like, no, look at it again.
It's a plane.
Those are propellers.
Yep, and then they open up the tomb and he's got a watch on. They were like, watches? Wait a minute. You're a watch from modern times.
Yeah, and so Archimedes may have actually time traveled. Yep. And then the Nazis show up.
And we find out that, they're the Nazis. They even put on the Nazi garb, which I quite enjoyed, because it's like, now Indy has plausible reason to punch every single one of these guys in the face. I don't know how the rest of them just bought in. Like, because they're like Americans. Like, I don't know why they were like... They're just, you know what?
I mean, there's Nazis, man.
Yeah, true.
Indy gets shot. How'd you feel about this? Kind of putting him, like, out of commission for the last, like...
I don't know how he didn't die. I feel like James Mangold's like, well, I can't do the same thing as Logan, so let me do the opposite. Let me have my main character not be able to do anything.
Yeah, he's just kind of, like, out of commission for the last,
and just kind of spewing, like, it's never gonna work. You freaking Nazis.
That's not how the Force works.
That's what he should have said. That's not how the Nazis worked.
Yeah, so they get on a big old-timey World War II
That's
plane.
not how time travel works.
They get on a big...
He did actually do a line like that, because he's just like, continental drift, it's not gonna work. Oh, good stuff.
They get on like an old timey World War II plane, and they're like, "We're gonna go kill Hitler."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I'm don't know how to feel.
I'm conflicted.
Yeah. Kill Hitler all you want, but the Nazis are still could win this, so not good.
And then she ends up boarding the plane. Her sidekick friend
She pulls
also
a Captain America one.
Yeah, her sidekick friend can also fly planes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about kid knowing how to fly planes?
He's just short round. He's literally just short round.
And then lo and behold, like the whole the whole conceit behind the dial is like it points you in the direction of a dimensional fissure.
Yeah, yep.
That you can literally just go through.
Yeah, because in the beginning of the movie they set it up, which is actually pretty decent. Like they say, like, what are these dates in your father's book? Like, there's actual dates in here, and then they find out it's not straight up time travel. It's like you go to this point, you go to this longitude and latitude, and it's going to open up a portal essentially to go to this certain date and time.
So the Nazis are going to go back to 1939 and they're going to kill Hitler.
Yep.
And then Indiana Jones is like, you're going the wrong way.
Well, he's just like continental drift, which
like
is,
Archimedes didn't account for continental drift.
Right.
So like the point that you're shooting for could be 10 degrees in any
left or
direction.
right, yeah.
Like, you could be way off here, and they're like,
Right.
we're going.
Yeah. Well, no, they try to stop it. They're just like, all right, let's try to stop it, but it's too late. They're already getting sucked into it. And then they were just like, we survived, we did it. Hitler, here we come. You're about to get murked, dude. And then they're like,
And then I'm like,
yeah, this ought to be good. Do you think what I thought they were gonna do? I thought they were gonna have old Indy run into.
I did think that at first.
Run into young Indy, which would have been insane. But they start descending, and then you're like, oh, it's kind of bright outside for Nazi Germany. And then I'm like, wait a minute, those look like Roman warships. Uh-oh, you're Archimedes from the Archimedes dial. This isn't good.
Yeah, so they full on time travel
2,000 years
to ancient Rome.
Yep. Insane. Wild.
Archimedes is there, like, and then that's where you like the wheels start turning. Yeah. You're like, oh, this is what happened. Like Archimedes, this happened.
Yes.
This event already happened.
Yep.
Which prompted Archimedes to find the watch and all that
Which
stuff.
one came first?
Don't do this.
Did Archimedes make the dial first, or did? Oh no!
It's a fixed loop.
It still doesn't make sense. Was Barry the time remnant, or did Savitar come? Like, was Savitar there to be defeated by Barry in a time remnant? But how was Savitar created without the time remnant to beat Savitar in the first place? It doesn't make sense. Was the dial made already to time travel? Or did Archimedes make the dial?
Well, he was already making the dial.
But it didn't work.
Or did it?
But then how did he get to the future?
He didn't get to the future.
Oh yeah, the dial brought it back to the past. But then how did the dial get to the future?
It just stayed there.
God.
All I know is this whole sequence, like...
Unfortunately, the Flash has the best time travel mechanics.
These Romans are built different.
Yeah, they are built different.
Because they're just taking down a whole warplane with spears.
Yep.
Killing Nazis.
Yep.
Shout out the Romans.
Yeah.
Eventually the plane crashes, kills Mads Mikkelsen, Archimedes takes his watch, and then he runs into Indiana Jones.
This is the sequence that if Crystal Skull thought it was the last movie Crystal Skull should have had.
Yeah.
So, talking about, your homage pieces, this is the last movie in a franchise. It works. And it's just, and like I said, this is the full circle. Like, Indy now is a piece of the history that he fought, his whole life to try to preserve. And it's just, he's running into one of his heroes. And, I think one thing that's incredible about Indiana Jones as a character is, like, as cool as he is, he's still just, like, a giant nerd that just loves, history. And it's just, it's awesome. Like, he's just like, I ran into my hero. Like, I ran into one of my heroes, somebody that I've been, researching my entire life. And they have and he's just like, you're always supposed to be here. And I'm like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Is that what Cate Blanchett saw in Crystal Skull? She saw this whole event happen?
Yeah, and then Indiana Jones, he's gonna do a Captain America Endgame. He's gonna stay in ancient Rome.
Yeah, he's like, I'm staying.
I got nothing else.
Yeah.
I got nothing in the present day.
And I don't know why this is this is just the weirdest heel turn for
Helena.
For Helena. This is where she's like, you need to come back. When did she ever care about Indy this much? That's my biggest question about her.
I mean, clearly it was there. Like, she was developing it. It was never shown to us.
There's also never a moment in this movie where she's just like, this guy's kind of cool. Like, you know what?
There's one moment. There's one moment where that happens, and it's when she's again doing like the jokey, like, what would you do if you could go back in time? Like, meet Cleopatra, and then he opens up to her and he's like, I would stop my son from enlisting because it led to him dying and then my wife leaving, and that's the moment when I thought she was gonna get it, and then she didn't get it, or if she did get it, they didn't show it to us.
And in Crystal Skull, what works for Mutt in that movie is when they go to, I forget where they were. When they were in that one temple, but they fight off those guards of the temple, and Mutt's just like, you're a teacher, and he's just like, he's like part-time. Like, that's what I was waiting for in this movie, for her to get to him. Like, he's capable, like he can actually do some of these things with them, and obviously it's his last hurrah at this, but emotionally I never bought it between the two of them. This whole ride, they felt like they didn't feel like they were paired together correctly.
No, they felt like reluctant companions.
Yeah. Which at some point, that's a good that is a perfect way to start, but that's not the way to finish. Like, it's too little too late.
And then they try to ramp up like
it's so much.
Like at the end where she's really passionately fighting for him to come back. And I'm like, where the hell was this the whole movie?
Like now it feels like what changes if he stays? Like, nothing changes. Like, if it's a closed loop situation, which
it's almost like she had the concoction that she comes up with at the end of the movie to like bring his wife back into the fold. Like, it feels like she was marinating that like the entire time, but like it was never clear that she was even like she even cared enough for that, because clearly like that she put that into motion, at least in her head at some point, because why else would she be fighting so passionately for him to come back? Like, she already made it clear, like, she didn't feel like he was a stand-in for her dad. And now all of a sudden she's making that case that, like, my dad is gone, like, you're the only person I have left. But, like, you didn't feel that a half hour ago.
Right, exactly. Like, there's no emotional connection to them, it feels like. It just feels like he's, like, the reluctant guy. And it's, like, in most stories what would happen is, like, they're reluctant, but they're capable, so, let's try to figure this out, and I'm going to teach you stuff along the way, like... And, obviously this isn't Indy's fault, but this is a writing problem. Like, what is he really teaching her along the way? It's just she and him are there to get to this place. Like, he's teaching Mutt things along the way. That him and Short Round have been through a couple things. Indy's learning stuff from his dad, so it's the inverse of it, but the same concept. Like, I never felt that up until that last 5 minutes when they were in...
You know who else didn't feel it? He didn't feel it, because he despite her passion plea, he's like, I'm staying.
Yeah. Like, I don't, like, if it was a different character, I bet he's just like, you know what? I might try to make it back. Or maybe the ending of this movie is written differently, but no.
So he also didn't feel it.
Yeah, he's like, that's my boy Archimedes. I'm gonna chill here for a little bit.
And then she's like, she wallops him. She knocks him out, and he wakes up back in his apartment in 1969. She's there, she's being very nice to him. Like, like I said, I'm gonna repeat it again. Like, I wish they had brought like her kind of her turn further up, because then this moment probably would have really played really well. That she's like, hey, like, how's your shoulder? Like, I brought you back. Like, yada yada yada. And then lo and behold, who walks through that door?
The little kid. Nope. Marion walks through that door. She's back. Yep. How's it going?
Yep. Karen Allen is back. And he's like, what is happening? What is this? She brings some groceries because he hasn't been taking care of himself. And then they rekindle their lost love.
Where does it hurt? It hurts right here. Aw. They did it. Good job.
And then Helena goes out with John Rhys Davies and all the children to get ice cream, and all's well that ends well. And we get the little closing shot of the hat and falls off the clothesline. And then that's it. That's the end of Indiana Jones. like I said, the ending I thought was really strong. Just the bits between him and her just didn't feel totally earned, which is unfortunate.
And it's just because it's such a massive part of this. It's the biggest conceit to get him, to do something. She needs, all she really does is need him to get the dial for her just so she can get the other half, or so she can sell it. She doesn't even care about the dial itself. She just wants to sell it because money. It's not all about the money, Spider-Man. It's about the museums. I love the museums.
So I think, like I said, I think the last probably like half hour captures some of the old Indiana Jones magic, but other than that, the movie was fine. Mm-hmm. It was okay. It wasn't the best movie of the summer. It was totally fine. That's kind of my final judgment. It was okay.
It was okay. It was a movie. I kept saying it when we were walking around. I was like, that was a movie with characters and plot and an ending. So that's cool. And a 3-act structure. In a score. Mm-hmm. Cinematography. Mm-hmm. In production. Mm-hmm. So
and some whips.
There was whips. There's hats. Time travel. That was something. All right, let's give out some of our world famous awards. Let us start with what's the saddest moment in this movie?
Him talking about what he would do if he could go back in time.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Harrison Ford does the acting in this. He doesn't the acting in a lot of this, but I love how passionate he is. Especially, where I really picked up his passion was in the New York sequence. I think he was, even when his 2 colleagues were killed too, you can really feel that he was all in on it too, emotionally, because that's something that Raiders and Temple didn't have as much, because he was just so cool and suave, and then Last Crusade doubles down to make up the lost time. But this movie, I think might be the most fully realized as like a human being that he is. Not only in the good stuff but the bad stuff too. But that's what make up people. So I'll just agree on that one. The most underrated character in this movie.
Boyd Holbrook's character?
Mm-hmm. Because he's just the same character. He's the same guy.
Just this maniac who just shoots first and asks questions later.
It's the same guy that he played in Logan. It's literally the same exact person.
I was unclear what his deal even was the entire movie.
He was the gunslinging cracker was what they called him specifically, so.
We never got any indication, the whole movie I was like, does he know that this guy's a Nazi?
That's what and then they all were wearing the Nazi uniforms at the end. I'm like,
I was like, I guess.
Aren't you? You're from Indiana, or you're just from some rant. Why are you a Nazi now?
He was fun.
He was learning German in the hotel room, and I was just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I quite like that CIA agent. I wanted more out of her, and I feel like it would have been cool for her to be kept alive and to go on, her have a heel turn and go with Indy and believe in him, because what they set up is that he's framed for the murder of his 2 colleagues.
That's never resolved.
And it is never resolved. He just is woken up in his apartment and then everything's cool. But I did quite like her character. I thought she was an interesting. What she could have had the bones of was Lashana Lynch in No Time to Die.
Sure.
I think she could have been kind of built from that same mold.
Sure.
Best relationship. Marion and Indy. Probably the best relationship. I'm actually going to pick Indy and Sala. I think are just. It just makes me feel reminiscent of the past. But
Indy and his work,
yeah. Indy and Archimedes, I figured it out. That's actually the one. Indy and Archimedes have the best relationship in this movie, because Archimedes is thanks for doing the thing that gets you back in time to make me make the dial, and Indy's I love history and your history, so. We're immediately.
Archimedes.
It's just the same. It's just the stepbrother scene. Did we just become best friends? That's exactly what the relationship is. Most heroic moment in this movie.
Probably. I mean, it's. That's a good question.
I think it's the opening.
I was going to say the opening bit.
It's the classic Indiana Jones opening.
I didn't want to say the opening bit, but I'm it's probably the opening bit.
I think it's definitively that opening bit of the movie.
Yeah, because it's where he does the heroism.
Yeah, he does the Henry Jones Jr.ing. He does the Indying. So
yeah.
Best bit.
The Nazi bit.
Yeah, I just like the fact that it's just there wasn't enough Nazi punching in Crystal Skull, so we got back to the Nazi punching in this movie.
You still a Nazi?
You still a Nazi? It's good stuff. What's the best bit? The big guy, because it's just every Indiana Jones movie needs a big guy to not be, needs a clever way to be.
Speaking of that big guy, that kid just kills him.
Yeah, he did kill him. Crazy.
Handcuffs him to a drain and drowns him.
Favorite cameo?
Probably Sala.
I'm gonna do the line of dialogue about the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay.
Or should it just be the Spear of Destiny is the best cameo in this movie? I'm picking the Spear of Destiny. We'll keep it simple. Best 1v1?
It's not technically a 1v1, but I liked him old manning about in the archive room.
Yeah,
where he tips over the shelving.
That's good stuff. Best heat check performance in this movie. I'm probably also gonna go with Sala. He was good.
Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, he was also, and again, it just wore what I wanted out of there. I'm gonna pick my guy from Logan and Sandman. It's gonna be my heat check performance actually, because he was just gun toting. He was just like
great mustache.
Yeah, great mustache. What's the best set in this movie?
I like that Moroccan casino quite a bit.
Moroccan casino was cool. If just throughout the chase sequence, if there wasn't so much CGI, I would have picked 1969 New York. I thought it was a pretty good look. But I'm going to go with the Morocco bit. I just think it looked the best. I actually think that also the ending looked really good. Where were they? They were in Sicily for that ending. Mm-hmm. I also think that looked pretty good. So I'll set a tie for that one. Best exposition dump. So these movies are one of the kings of the exposition dump.
Yeah, they are. Best exposition dump probably is. I just liked him. I liked him explaining to her the whole bit about the dial,
mm-hmm.
And what the dial does.
It's iconic indie stuff. Just explain the MacGuffin, because somehow you're this guy that can just take on a battalion of Nazis, but also you're just the smartest guy in the room. So
here's what it does.
Here's what it does. Here's the lore behind it. And here's my spectrum of if I think it's real or if I think it's BS. That's how indie operates.
Yeah.
What is the best source material callback? Just the web itself. What is the best source material callback? That's actually a good one. I think it sucks, but it's Mutt. It's what happened to Mutt and what happened. The deterioration of their relationship. So
I'm glad he's dead.
God, not in universe, but out. Best NPC, our favorite category.
Ooh, I got one. That one Roman soldier that was just killing everybody.
Wasn't that Marcus Aurelius?
I guess.
I'm pretty sure that's who that was supposed to be.
It's never explicitly stated, but
my favorite.
That guy was.
He was cooking. My favorite NPC is her ex-fiance. Is Helena's ex-fiance. That was just don't kill him because I'm still in love with her. That also could have been the best bit.
Also, the best callback of Indy being afraid of snakes.
Oh, yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. What's the kid's name? I forget what the kid's name is. It starts with an M.
I was going to say, does it start with an M?
Does it? I could be completely
I thought it was
wrong.
a T. Wasn't it Teddy?
Yeah, it is Teddy. It is Teddy.
Yeah.
Teddy's just they're just they kind of look like snakes. Don't say that. What is the best musical moment?
Anytime the Indiana Jones theme is used.
Yep. Really good. There's a really good bit. It's kind of it was when he meets Sala and then they go to the airport and then he's just give him hell, Indiana Jones, that bit, and then it goes up into the theme when he starts doing the globe trotting. That was good stuff right there.
Yeah.
Favorite line?
I just like that line where he goes, I don't believe in magic, but a few times in my life I've seen things I can't explain, and I've come to believe it's not so much what you believe, it's how hard you believe it.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I like the line that Sala gives him from the trailer. I miss the desert, I miss the sea. Let's do the globe trotting one more time, boss. It's good stuff. Best fight.
Probably the fight on the train, right?
Yeah.
When he's fighting all those guys on the train. In the beginning.
Yeah, it's got to be that. And then that just launches into the best action sequence. So 3, 2, 1,
The Morocco sequence, yeah.
Easy. Favorite shot in this movie?
Oh, man. The weird thing is, like, there's not many that make me, like, that stick out.
And you know what?
In my mind?
You know what's kind of frustrating? It's even more frustrating because this is a James Mangold film that I can't find, like, a discernible shot. So I'm going to go... I do like the shot of, where... his guy dumps everything onto the train table, and it's like the whip, the hat, the shirt, and it's like, that's a great.
I like
great
that.
Indiana. There's a great silhouette shot on the train too, when when the main Nazi's coming after them, and he's like walking out of the smoke from the train. That's a good shot, right?
I like the flyover of BC Sicily.
Yeah, that was good. There is a really good... It's something that's really subtle. It reminded me of the shot in Skyfall where he's kind of like draped in the shade, where he goes into the Moroccan casino and he's like racing through the levels, and it's just really... That's a small bit of really good, simple, really good movie making in there.
Yeah.
Best world... We already went over that. What's the best performance in this movie?
Harrison Ford.
Yeah, easy. It's just easy. Favorite character?
Indiana Jones.
It's not complicated. Favorite moment or scene? I'll just do 2 and 1 because 2 is the where he talks about his son and he's just like what I would do with the dial. And then my favorite scene is that ending. I think that ending is really good.
I think the ending is really strong too.
I really liked it. It just it's what a lot of these franchises that are like, the let's do the thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years after we did the original thing fail to do. But some get it right, and this is one that gets it right of like Indy himself, like I've been chasing after history my whole life. I might as well be a part of this history. Mm-hmm. So something simple, but something very effective. And that is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Let's rank the MacGuffins, all 5 of them.
Okay. So what do we got? We have
the Ark of the Covenant.
Yep. We got the Grail.
We have the Grail.
We have the Dial of Destiny.
The Dial of Destiny. We have the Crystal Skull, and Temples of Dooms was the stones. Yeah, the stones.
I'm gonna say, and I guess in reverse order I could do this. I'm gonna say the Crystal Skull 5th. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say probably the stones 4th, and then the Dial of Destiny, and then the Grail, and then the Ark. Okay,
I'm gonna go with the stones last. I'm gonna go with the Crystal Skull 4th because that was the first Indiana Jones movie I saw was Crystal Skull. So that was 9, I think. So, I'm gonna go with the Dials 3rd. I think it's a solid one. I'm actually gonna go the Ark 2nd, and I'm gonna go the Holy Grail the 1st one because I think the Holy Grail is the best payoff to any of them.
It's true, and it's also Holy Grail is probably the best MacGuffin in history.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the franchise has so many MacGuffins that it kind of threw away the Spirit of Destiny. It was just like, it's a fake, so it's fine.
And I mean, just all in all, like wrapping up, like thinking about this movie, like just the budget piece, going back to that, and it's just, I said this to you before we started recording, and I think the point is important, is like, so George Lucas obviously, had a hand in this.
And Steven Spielberg was, right. Both of them
were
there, yeah.
I mean, but the conceit behind Indiana Jones was like, that Lucas had already made Star Wars, which was this bigger budget kind of thing, and he wanted to do something kind of a little bit smaller scale, quite a more like, kind of just action rompy, so Indiana Jones was created, and this movie being a $300 million movie kind of, goes against that original concept. Sure. Like, I feel like you could have made this movie with $100 million. Like, you could have.
Like, you could have made this with 100, like, let's just say modern times, let's say 100, let's just say 200, which is $100 million less.
Yeah.
You made this movie with 200, just 3 things you need to do. Number 1, you need to go... Practicality is your best friend. I think the practical nature of this franchise is what was so iconic about it in these first 3 movies. Even, the expansive craziness of Temple of Doom still was shot practically, and they did a lot of stuff practically. Obviously not the lava and the molten pit, but, a lot of just the building out of sets and stuff like that was all done practically too. Practicality is 1. I think, 2 is, if you're going to do this as the last piece in the franchise, you need to be more conscious about, who the person who's getting him to get back into the call of action is. I think that was a miss. It's not Phoebe Waller-Bridge's fault, but it's a writing issue at that point. The third point is my main point, overarching theme of this episode, and this feels like product. A large chunk of this movie feels like product versus, this endearing ending to this, incredible franchise with one of the single most iconic movie characters of all time. In the top 5 most iconic movie characters of all time is Indiana Jones. I'm might have to see this movie again. I don't know if that saves this movie, that the fact that Harrison Ford was so good in this movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it does either. But, it was fine. It's just unfortunate that the movie cost so much and was, such, attached to this type of franchise because, it was just so okay. And I feel like it could have been and should have been better.
Yep.
Is basically my final thought on it.
Maybe Disney's washed.
Whoa!
I'm kidding.
Oh boy!
I'm kidding.
Sheesh!
I'm kidding.
Man, we're almost through it. We're almost through it. We're almost through this crazy summer.
It's great. It's already, by the time we see Mission Impossible, it'll be mid-July, which is it's nuts. We were just in April talking about Mario, and look at us now.
Yeah, and that's next week.
Yeah, it is next week. So I am looking forward so much to that movie. I ranked them somewhere, but I think this was my third or fourth most anticipated movie of this year. Obviously Dune was number 1. But yeah, I cannot wait for this movie. It looks great. Tom Cruise is, he is the last action star. That should be his last movie. Should be, Tom, I got you. You're going to do a movie. You're going to be 99 years old, and it's going to be called The Last Action Star. And it's going to be about the exploits of, the greatest living movie star of everybody's generation that started, from when he was a kid until that point in his old life. And yeah, you go and you make sure you do every genre of movie in this movie. And yeah, it's going to be a great movie. I just gave him his final movie of his life. It's going to be great.
Yeah, so that's next week is going to be Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Part 1. and I think there's a gap in between that. No, there won't be a gap. And then it's D-Day. Or B-Day?
Well, all right, so this is coming out this week, obviously. Mm-hmm. So there will be an episode before Mission Impossible, depending on when we see it.
Mm-hmm. We'll figure it out.
So we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
So either next week will be our Mission Impossible review, depending on when we see it, or it will be a...
We'll talk about Daredevil seasons 1 through 3, plus all the appearances in the MCU.
But until then, you can follow us on Twitter at ProjectINF_pod. You can follow us on Facebook. New episodes posted there every Wednesday.
You can't find us on Threads yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm still figuring it out.
So is the entire internet.
You can follow us on Instagram.
At the Project Infinite Pod.
Thank you. And next week, like I said, it's up in there. Depending on when we see Mission Impossible, we'll dictate what we're doing next week. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's, I was glad to see Indiana Jones again.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't talk well enough about this movie because there are still things in this movie that I do quite like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, the last thing I'll say, it was a movie.
Definitely was a movie.
It was a movie.
And then the next time we'll see Harrison Ford will be in the MCU.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is a crazy thing to say. But, all right, guys. From the...
Careful, man. Because if you say something wrong, I'm a Nazi. I bet I know who you're going to give me. So let's do it on 3.
Oh, no. I don't know. Do you know?
Do you have it?
Yeah, I think I got it.
All right, 3, 2, 1, Teddy.
Sala.
Okay.
Oh.
Right.
No, I was going to give you Teddy, man. I was going to give you Sala.
But at least I can fly a plane.
Sala's cool, though.
I mean, Sala's the best. You're named after the dog.
He's John Rhys Davies.
He is John Rhys Davies.
What is that character? What is his deal?
He's guy that gets you things that you need, that pops in and out at convenient times.
Yeah.
But he's one of the best examples of that in movie. He's one of the only ones in movie history where I don't care about any I don't care about lore, I don't care about logic, doesn't matter. Solid shows up, we're good. That's what I care about. Man, when Solid's just like, he said, I've also bought my passport, Indy. I'm like, man, let him come with you.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week for some stuff. Could be Mission Impossible. Could be another thing.
Daredevil Born Again preview. Nope.
It's never too soon.
It's never too soon.
All right, guys.
We could talk about Morbius again.
Ooh.
Nope.
Morbius retrospective. Matt Smith?
Ooh. Could be your... Oh, we didn't talk about that.
Oh. We didn't.
Yeah, we have to end the episode on this. So, apparently, Adam Driver and Margot Robbie are out.
And you might say, bummer.
Yeah.
But I say, because
the true smartest man alive.
The rumor has it that Vanessa Kirby and Matt Smith could possibly be stepping in. And, I mean, don't call us prophets or anything, but I believe we had this. Get Matt Smith in the MCU.
Yeah. It's like it's like the popular kids dropped out and the theater kids stepped in. That's what this feels like.
I think that would be great.
I think that would be great. I'm particularly, I was always a fan of Vanessa Kirby being Invisible Woman at any fat. I didn't care who, Reed Richards was at that point, as much as like I had a feeling that Vanessa Kirby's name was still in the mix. I thought Jodie Comer had it like locked down for a little bit, but I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued to see how the rest of this plays out, because I don't know if Paul Mescal is going to stay as Johnny and I forget David, I forget his name, but I don't know if they're all going to stay on or if they're just going to try to get a new 4. So
But I mean, if you've ever seen The Crown,
yeah,
Matt Smith and Vanessa Kirby are tremendous.
Exactly.
Together.
And if you've ever seen House of the Dragon, a channel favorite of ours, you know that Matt Smith is him.
If you've ever seen Morbius,
the greatest villain in cinema history,
he can keep his tongue.
He said that in Morbius.
Man.
Why was his name Milo in Morbius? That just makes it much funnier. Like this villainous vampire just named Milo.
Milo. All right, guys. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
We gotta go, man.
Until then, goodbye.
Peace.